Hello everyone, and welcome to the channel. Before we dive into today's story, we just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you all for watching. We truly appreciate your support. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It's totally free, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest stories. Now, with all that said, let's jump straight into the story.
The grainy footage flickered on the laptop screen, a silent scream from a forgotten past. A local news report, digitized and warped with age, detailed the disappearance of Jenny Mae Walters in 1978. 8 years old. Last seen near the old Oak Ridge playground. Similar reports followed, each a chilling echo. Timmy Olson, 1985. Lily Hayes, 1993. Donna Johnson, 2024. The playground, always Oak Ridge Playground. Locals spoke of a curse. Whispers carried on the wind that howled through the rusted swing set, a chorus of children's laughter forever trapped in the fading light of dusk. Sarah and Mark hadn't paid much attention to the stories when they bought the old Victorian on Maplewood Drive. They were city folk skeptics. The price was right, the house had character, and the surrounding woods offered Eli, their 8-year-old son, a much-needed escape from concrete and screens. Eli was a quiet child, a little lonely with a vivid imagination. The playground, tucked away behind a thicket of gnarled trees, was a forbidden kingdom. Fenced off with decaying chain link, choked with weeds, it should have been a deterrent. But for Eli it was a siren song. One afternoon, while Sarah was unpacking boxes and Mark was wrestling with a leaky pipe, Eli ventured into the woods. He returned with a smudge of dirt on his cheek and a faraway look in his eyes. "I made some friends today, Mom," he said, his voice a little too breathy. "They want me to come play again tomorrow." Sarah smiled. "That's nice, honey. Who were they?" Eli shrugged. "They just live in the woods." The next day and the day after that, Eli disappeared into the woods after school, returning late, his clothes dusty and his face flushed. He talked about games he played, tag under the weeping willow, hide and seek amongst the rusted jungle gym, spinning on the creaking carousel. Sarah and Mark assumed it was imaginary friends, a phase. They were relieved he was finally making connections. Then came the drawings. Crude, childlike renderings of faces, hauntingly familiar. Sarah recognized one instantly. Jenny Mae Walters, the girl from the grainy news footage. Others followed, each face etched with a mixture of glee and something else. Something unsettling. "Who are these people, Eli?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. Eli's eyes clouded over, his voice a strange, raspy imitation. "They're my friends. They want me to play with them forever. They're happy here." The joy of Eli's newfound friendships turned to icy dread. He started humming lullabies Sarah had never taught him, old tunes that seemed to seep from the very walls of the house. He spoke in fragments, whispers of forgotten games and long-lost secrets. "They want me to stay," he'd murmur in his sleep, his face pale and strained. Another child went missing. Little Billy Carter, dared by his friends to sneak into the Oak Ridge playground at night. He never came out. Desperate, Sarah researched local history. She unearthed the stories, the legends. Oak Ridge Playground. The cursed ground. She found the old newspaper articles, the police reports, the terrified testimonies of those who had lived through the disappearances. One name kept surfacing, Old Man Hemlock. A former sheriff, now a recluse, whispered to be the only one who truly understood the evil lurking in Oak Ridge. They found him in his dilapidated cabin, his eyes clouded with age and fear. "That place," he rasped, his voice like dry leaves skittering across the floor, "it doesn't just take children. It feeds on them. Remembers. Builds its strength from their joy, their innocence, their fear." He revealed the truth. The playground was built on a pauper's cemetery, a mass grave for children who had perished in a cholera outbreak in the 1800s. Unmarked graves, forgotten souls, restless and angry. The playground was a conduit, a focal point for their trapped energy. Every few decades, it awakened, drawing in new victims, trapping their spirits within its decaying embrace. Once a child steps inside at dusk, Hemlock croaked, they become part of it. Their laughter, their play, it all feeds the beast. They vanish, but they never truly leave. That night Eli didn't come home. Sarah and Mark raced through the woods, armed with flashlights, their hearts pounding against their ribs like trapped birds. The playground loomed ahead, a skeletal silhouette against the moonlit sky. The rusted swings swayed gently despite the lack of wind. A faint melody drifted from the carousel, a distorted children's song. Then they saw them. Apparitions, translucent figures of children, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. They swirled around the playground, their ethereal laughter echoing through the trees. And amongst them Eli. His face was pale, his eyes vacant, but a faint smile played on his lips. "Mommy, Daddy," his voice was a chorus of voices, "come play with us. Forever." The air grew cold, the shadows lengthened, and the apparition surged forward. The rusted swing set became a writhing mass of chains, the carousel spun faster and faster, a blur of ghostly faces. Sarah, driven by a primal instinct, stepped forward. "Take me," she cried, her voice cracking with desperation. "Take me instead of him. Let him go." The laughter subsided. The apparition stilled. A figure emerged from the swirling shadows, a child no older than 10, but with eyes that held the weight of centuries. "An offer," the figure croaked, its voice a discordant symphony of lost children. "An exchange. Acceptable." Eli was pushed towards them, his eyes clearing, his face filled with confusion. "Mom?" "Go, Eli. Go home," Sarah screamed. He hesitated, then turned and ran, stumbling through the undergrowth, away from the nightmare. Sarah watched him go, a wave of relief washing over her. But when she turned back, the apparitions surrounded her, their faces contorted with glee. Their icy fingers reached out, pulling her into the swirling darkness. There was no pain, only a fading sense of warmth, a feeling of being welcomed. 15 years later, Eli stands at the edge of the woods, holding the hand of his own child. He glances towards the playground, barely visible through the trees. A single swing creaks gently in the wind. And from within the decaying structure, a voice, a chorus of voices, whispers on the breeze, "Come play with us." Let us know in the comment section, would you have done the same as Eli's mom? Time for the next story. Guys, if you liked that last story, please don't forget to leave a like. Thank you. The whispers started with the rusted fence. It wasn't just that the chain link was choked with vines, or that the gate hung crookedly on a single hinge. It was the unsettling quiet that clung to the abandoned playground deep in the Blackwood forest, even when the summer air thrummed with cicadas. Emma Carson, all elbows and untamed blonde hair, saw it first. She was leading her crew, Liam, the cautious one, Chloe, the daredevil, and little Mikey, who followed Emma like a lost puppy, on a shortcut home from the creek. "Whoa," Chloe breathed, stopping dead. "That's gotta be the haunted playground." Liam swallowed, his eyes wide. "My grandma says it's cursed. Something bad happened there." Emma, ever the explorer, wasn't deterred. "Cursed? That's just a story. Come on." The gate groaned open as she pushed it, revealing swings suspended motionless, a slide crusted with moss, and a carousel with peeling paint horses frozen mid-gallop. As they ventured deeper, a chill sunk into Emma's bones, a coldness that felt separate from the surrounding forest shade. That's when she saw him. A flicker in the periphery, a sliver of darkness that seemed to stretch and distort in the corner of her eye. Tall and impossibly thin, with a face swallowed by shadow. He stood just beyond the carousel, watching. But when Emma blinked and pointed, Liam, Chloe, and Mikey saw nothing. "Emma, you okay?" Liam asked, his voice laced with worry. "Yeah," she mumbled, shaking her head. I thought I saw something." They spent the rest of the afternoon playing, oblivious to the unseen figure that lingered at the edge of the woods. As the sun dipped below the trees, casting long, skeletal shadows, they parted ways, promising to return the next day. That night, Nathan and Julia Carson noticed a change in their daughter. Emma, usually a chatterbox, was withdrawn. She stared at empty corners of her room, her brow furrowed. Nathan dismissed it as kid stuff, but Julia felt a prickle of unease. Later, after Emma had finally drifted off to sleep, Julia found her daughter's drawing pad. Page after page, filled with crude but disturbing images. Stick figures with no faces, a playground bathed in an unnatural darkness, and a looming, elongated shape that seemed to absorb the light around it. The next few days were unsettling. Liam started talking about Mr. Tall, a kind man who told him secrets. Chloe referred to the Watcher, who kept her company on the swings. And Mikey, always the simplest, just called him Hollow, and insisted on leaving out a plate of cookies for him every night. The first sign for Nathan was the flickering lights. He chalked it up to faulty wiring, even as a deep-seated dread began to creep in. Julia, however, was experiencing something far more terrifying. Whispers in the dark, just out of reach of understanding. Cold spots that clung to her like a shroud. One night, she awoke to find Emma standing at her bedside, eyes wide and unblinking, a chillingly flat voice whispering, "He says you're next." Julia recoiled, grabbing Emma and pulling her close. But the room remained icy, the air thick with an unseen presence. Then the pets started vanishing. Mrs. Henderson's cat, Whiskers, disappeared without a trace. And little Mikey's hamster, Nibbles, vanished from its cage, leaving behind only an empty water bottle. One morning, Julia found the living room mirror cracked, a spiderweb of fractures that seemed to radiate from a single point in the center. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, moving independently of any known light source. The nightmare culminated with Mr. Henderson. Nathan got the call early one morning. Heart failure. But when he arrived at the Hendersons' house, he caught a glimpse of the deceased through the open doorway. His face was frozen in a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. The surviving parents, bound by a growing sense of dread, started comparing notes. The vanished pets, the cracked mirrors, the whispering shadows, the growing isolation of their children. And the one common denominator, the abandoned playground. Desperate, Nathan reached out to old Mrs. Abernathy, the town's resident historian and retired librarian. She lived in a creaky old house overflowing with books and the scent of mothballs. When Nathan described the playground and the strange happenings, Mrs. Abernathy's face paled. "That place," she whispered, her voice raspy. "It isn't abandoned, Mr. Carson. It's bait. A spirit lives there, one that uses joy and innocence as a bridge to feed." She recounted a dark chapter in the town's history, a time before the town, when a secluded cult practiced unspeakable rituals in those very woods. Child sacrifices, offered to appease a forgotten deity. The playground was built on holy ground turned wicked, Mrs. Abernathy explained. The Hollow Man is the last priest of that cult, cursed to feed eternally on the life of adults, using the trust of children as his weapon. He cannot cross into your homes unless a child invites him in. Once inside, he takes your soul, leaving only a husk behind. The horror of it all washed over Nathan. He realized what was happening. The children, in their innocent play, had opened a door to something ancient and malevolent. The following days were a race against time. Nathan and Julia tried to keep Emma away from her friends, but the playground's pull was too strong. Emma became withdrawn, increasingly secretive, and increasingly insistent on a sleepover with her friends. One evening, Julia overheard Emma whispering into the darkness of her room, murmuring instructions in a sing-song voice. A ritual. The Hollow Man was using Emma to plan a ceremony, a final offering. That night, Nathan and Julia followed Emma and her friends into the woods. The playground was transformed. An unnatural light emanated from the rusted equipment, casting long, grotesque shadows. The swings moved on their own, swaying to a silent, unsettling rhythm. The air was heavy with the stench of rot and the whispers of long-dead voices. And then they saw him, the Hollow Man. He had fully manifested, a towering figure of bone and shadow, draped in tattered scraps of children's clothes. His face was a void, two hollow sockets burning with a malevolent light. He stood by the carousel, his long, skeletal fingers caressing the horse's peeling paint. "You shouldn't have come here," he rasped, his voice a chorus of whispers echoing in their minds. The children, entranced, moved towards him, their eyes glazed over, their faces blank. Julia screamed, breaking the spell. The Hollow Man turned his gaze to them, and Julia felt a wave of despair and regret wash over her. All the time she had been too busy, too tired, to truly connect with Emma. All the unspoken fears and anxieties she had burdened her daughter with. The Hollow Man fed on that fear. He grew stronger, taller, his shadow stretching across the playground. Nathan lunged at him, but the Hollow Man effortlessly deflected him with a wave of his hand. He turned his attention to Julia, his hollow eyes boring into her soul. The only way to stop him, Mrs. Abernathy had said, was to sever the children's psychic connection to him, to break his bridge to the human world. To face the darkness within themselves and reject the despair he offered. Julia knew what she had to do. With a strength she didn't know she possessed, she pushed Nathan away and stepped forward, placing herself between the Hollow Man and the children. "Take me," she cried, her voice trembling but resolute. "Leave them alone." The Hollow Man hesitated, his hollow eyes flickering with a strange emotion. Then, with a final agonizing scream, Julia focused on her love for Emma, her regret for the lost time, the fierce, protective instinct that burned within her. She poured all her love, all her remorse, all her defiance into a single blinding wave of energy. The Hollow Man staggered back, his form flickering and dissolving. The playground fell silent. The unnatural light vanished. The children collapsed, unconscious. When Nathan came to, Julia was gone. Only a faint, ethereal glow remained where she had stood. The Hollow Man was gone too, seemingly destroyed. Months passed. Emma was quiet, haunted by nightmares, but slowly she began to heal. The playground was torn down, the land salted, the memories buried. But in a small town miles away, a child named Kevin was playing in his backyard. He had been digging in the dirt, looking for buried treasure, when his shovel struck something hard. He unearthed a rusted carousel horse, its paint peeling, its eyes staring blankly ahead. Billy grinned, wiping the mud from the horse's face. "Cool," he exclaimed and ran inside to show his mom. As his mom admired the horse, a flicker of movement caught her eye in the periphery, in the reflection of the horse's glassy eyes. The screen flickers, and in the shadows, two hollow eyes blink open, a silent promise of a new haunting begun.
Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare.